it is a mysterious thing. You know, Leonard Cohen famously said, if I knew where songs came from, I'd go there more often. And it's true. We get these moments, these flashes where things are going well and you're catching a bit of a wave and you're getting songs and things are coming, and then there are long periods where nothing comes. You know, I remember when I was a kid, there was a guy who lived upstairs in a flat upstairs from me. I rented a flat here in Dublin, a little bedsit, and the guy upstairs from me was a writer, and I remember being really blown away by this guy. He was a writer. Like, that was so mysterious. And I remember you'd hear him knocking around late at night, and I had this idea of this guy upstairs was sitting there at his typewriter and just writing, you know, which I'd often hear. And I remember one day having the guts to ask him, I think I was like 16 or whatever. And I asked him, John, how do you, like, thinking I was going to get this, like, you know, huge answer. I said, how do you write? Like, you know, what is it? How do you do it? He said, I'll tell you, Glenn, I'll tell you how to do it. You just write. And then he elaborated. He said, you write and you write and you write and you write the good stuff and you write the bad stuff and you write a lot of bad stuff and you write a lot of good, you write a little bit of good stuff and and then eventually you hit on something. And when you hit on something, you'll know, because it's a bit like a dog that hears a certain sound. Your head will kind of go off to the side and you'll know something. It's like hearing a frequency. You'll just know that you're onto something, or that you've hit on something that contains a little bit of mystery, if that's the right way to say it. A little bit of kind of something. And you know, as writers and as songwriters, we're not really about writing answers to questions. It's more like we're just adding the same kinds of questions and we're just asking the same kind of questions. So the songwriter doesn't come, I don't think, or certainly I can only speak for myself, but you don't come with answers. That's not your job. Your job is not to try to sort of figure something out. Your job is just to try ask the same questions as everybody else. And so that's kind of what we're doing. It's a bit of frontal lobe and a bit of back lobe. It's really, really important that you allow yourself to just go blah, 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 blah. Like, I've actually gotten quite good at it through the years, like, but we'll keep walking down and they never go. And I said, oh, I nowhere. So, like, right, complete mumbo jumbo, right? And so one really interesting way of writing songs is to do that and record it, right? So it's like you're singing nothing, but actually I disagree that you're singing nothing. Even what I sing there is something prophetic, because even when you're singing nonsense, and maybe especially when you're singing nonsense, you're tuning into a deeper thing in yourself. But it's a kind of a practice. You have to allow yourself to just go blah, 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 blah. You're kind of tuning out of your kind of present and you're tuning into something that's kind of internal. And I think that this is a huge tool that you can keep in your arsenal and because then at some point you'll sit down with a pen and paper and you'll begin to sketch out what you think you might have been saying. And there's a lovely thing when you've put a bit of distance between your kind of blah, blah, blah and what you'd think you might want to say on paper. What a song is just words and music, and somehow words and music together create this thing, and that thing has an energy. It has some energy. That's the thing we're attempting to do in this work. And you know, essentially, songwriting is it's similar to poetry, but it's not poetry. Words are a very powerful thing. Poetry is a very powerful thing. Poetry has the capacity, it has the power to just to inspire, to heal, but it also has the power to incite rage, and it also has the power to incite incredible anger and you know, there's you could be, Martin Luther King used poetry in such a wonderful way, but then someone like Adolf Hitler used poetry in another way. And so we have to, words are very, very powerful. And so how we place them and what they what they say and what they mean is a very it's a very powerful thing. So the time is always right to do what's right. Martin Luther King, or like if you want to shine like the sun, first you have to burn like it. Now that's Hitler. That's like. So it's a kind of it's a crazy one, that poetry has this ability to really make us do all kinds of crazy things and whip us up into storms that we didn't know we could get into. But the power of words is a wonderful thing, and it's a dangerous thing. So we got to be really mindful when we write words that they have a bit of truth in them and a bit of humility, and you deliver them with the right spirit. When I was younger, if I came up with a bit of a song at all, that was good enough reason to sort of finish it and put it up and get it finished. And as I've gotten older, I've realised that just because you've come up with a bit of a riff and a few lyrics, that isn't a song. It doesn't become a song until it has truth in it. And the truth doesn't have to be like some righteous truth. Just, are you saying something? Because if you're not saying anything, then it's just a riff with some words against it. And there's nothing wrong with that, because there's a lot of great songs that are just riffs with words against it. But for me, as I've gotten older, I kind of need the song to mean a little bit more. A guitar riff and a few lyrics isn't a song until it's a song for you. And that is and if you mean it and there's an essence of truth in it, that is really it. And so for me, as I've gotten older, I guess I've learned to get out of my own way a bit more, and I've learned to just let what's in me come out. A lot of old frame songs, a lot of old songs of mine, I've forgotten because they were a bit of music that I wrote lyrics over, and so that you forget them because they're not actually songs. They're almost like exercises. That song is just an exercise. I did it. Look, it rhymes. It has a melody, but it's not a song. A song, for me, a song is only a song when it's actually speaking about something. Ernest Hemingway. I was reading Ernest Hemingway recently. His incredible book, A Movable Feast, and he writes in it: whenever you're stuck, whenever you sit down and you can't write and nothing is coming, write one true line. Just write something that's true. Anything. Something that's just true. And bam, you're gonna come out of it. I remember there was a great story that I had the good fortune of sitting with Bruce and the E Street Band one night in Australia, and little Stephen told me a story. He was talking about dancing in the dark. Bruce was trying to write. His manager wanted him to write a hit song, and Bruce didn't really have the song on the record. The album was kind of a heavy one. And anyway, Bruce tried, and little Stephen said that he had released 2 solo albums in the time that Bruce was still trying to write this one song for radio that he never managed to get. And Bruce sat down one day and he just wrote in his journal, he wrote, I get up in the evening and I ain't got nothing to say. Get up in the morning feeling the same way. Man, I'm nothing but tired. I'm just tired and bored with myself. Hey baby, I could use just a little help. And it's like, bam! That was the song. And it was Bruce basically going, I'm so done. I've got nothing to offer now. I've got nothing to speak about. And so that's a kind of an amazing version of somebody just speaking the truth. When they had nothing else to say, when they couldn't find a hit song, they wrote something truthful, and bam, it all jumped out. Songwriting is kind of restricted by certain things. English has a certain amount of words, and it has a lot of words, but it only has a certain amount of words that rhyme. So if you take the word rebellion, take a word, and there's a song of mine, Her Mercy, for instance, and there's a real struggle. And here's a challenge for you. There's a part in this song where I go, it'll come when you're broken, when your heart is finally open. Now, rhyming open with broken that's something I want to talk more about, because that's a thing called half rhyme. And half rhyme is a huge key to songwriting, because so much of the time we feel we need to write things in full rhyme. And if you listen to some of the great songs, half rhyme is a huge thing. So, and then the next bit, which is a full rhyme, which really bothers me and has always bothered me, and I confess it right here, is when you're down and troubled, when you're lost, buried down beneath the rubble. So, rubble and trouble. There's a real difficult one for me, because I love the song, and I was very pleased when that song came along, and because I thought, when you're down and troubled is actually exactly what I want to say. Now, I could have changed the word troubled. When you're down and doubtful, or when you're down and broken, when you're down and desolate, whatever the word, but I knew the word trouble was the right word. When you're down and troubled. But what rhymes with troubled? And of course, when you think about falling apart and you think about your life's a mess, then rubble kind of makes sense, because it's kind of part of the same idea. And also, I was writing another song called My Little Ruin and rubble, and I was kind of in a spot where those words made sense, and I recorded it and I let it go. But it bothers me. Chord structure. I have another confession here now. I didn't realize this at the time, but and I hope I don't get into trouble now. I probably will. But it's basically, my song is, it's the same chords as if you ever change your mind about leaving me behind. Oh, give it to me. Bring your sweet loving, bring it on home to me. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I never knew that until it was too late, and then I remember playing this song for a friend of mine who said, "Do you know what? You should stick in one chord that's a little off there. Just put in one chord that doesn't do exactly what the Sam Cooke song does. Bring it on home to me. Just use a different." And so I stuck in this chord. So when you're kneeling through the hours and you're doubting your given powers, and you're ready for mercy, and in this chord, and you're worthy, it'll come. Now, I know that's a tiny chord change. It's an F sharp minor just before, instead of going to a B just before, it's an F sharp minor, which makes a tiny bit of difference. And because he made a great point. He said, when we hear songs on the radio, or we hear songs in a car, or we hear songs at a gig, and we recognize the chord change, it's almost like we subconsciously recognize the chord change. Something in us tunes out, because we know this melody, we know this beat, we recognize this format. And so if you stick a chord in that's slightly jarring or slightly off, it pulls the ear in, and suddenly people come into the song a little closer. So it's just an interesting one. If you have a song that you're working on and it's the chords sound very traditional, just try kick in one chord into it that just pulls the ear in another direction. So this whole idea of half rhyme, putting odd chords in just to sort of pull things out in a different way, is a really interesting way of giving the song a second life, because sometimes you might write a song, it might sound too much like something else, and before you know it, you've just let it go. And so that's kind of something that I notice happens with me a lot. A lot of songs I write don't make it because something about them just feels too familiar, and oftentimes those are the songs that actually should end up on records, because sometimes what's familiar about them is actually not musical. It's something to do with the spirit. We're all stealing from someone, which is another good point. Stealing. Whether we do it unknowingly. Sometimes we do it knowingly. The only people know whether we did it knowingly or unknowingly are us. I was thinking about it today. There's a song of mine called Song for Someone. It's on a Frames album called The Cost. And the opening lyric is, drying up in conversation still. And it was like 2 years after I wrote that song and it was recorded that I realized it was a Radiohead lyric. And I was like, oh no. So it just shows you that and listen, that's only a tiny admission. There are loads of them that happen, and some happen really obviously, and some get away and you don't notice. So it's really good, I would say, to bounce the lyrics off your bandmates, bounce the lyrics off your friends, just to sing your song to people. Because sometimes when you sing your song to someone, you will it'll suddenly reveal something about itself that you didn't see. Because oftentimes we're in a tunnel. We're singing a thing. We think we've hit on gold. Sometimes you play it for someone and they're just like, yeah, whatever. And sometimes we play something that we think is nothing, and bam. The basic thing about writing is there's no right way to do it. You know, the truth is the only thing that matters, and the truth is the only thing you'll remember. So stick a bit of truth into your song for yourself, and never mind the rest of them. Never mind how it gets judged, because that oftentimes we sit on stuff forever because we're afraid of how it'll be perceived and how it'll be heard. But that's your first hurdle. Get over that, because you know, you'll keep it all in your bedroom if you don't. A song will actually come forward when it's meant to. That is exactly the point. So